Let me know how it looks, guys. Yay! We exist. We doth exist. Alrighty, cool. We will just play with this and see what we got. And we'll see. We'll see. OBS apparently just likes to kind of, you know, change your settings on the fly. Thanks, OBS. Not. All right, so I'm going to try to lighten up this color just a wee bit with more creamy ivory. And that's going to bring it more in line with the color that I started with. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm graying out Shield Brown even more. There we go, that's good. We kind of don't have the purple that we've got. But you know what, that'll work. Close enough. Close enough. All right, everything is green. Yes, you can repeat yourself if you want to, Trash. So, all right, good. I am going to, since I had to change my colors a little bit, since I somehow managed to not figure out where my Gloom and Grave Triad was, I am going to kind of overcoat over these little bony bits so that I can kind of start fresh. It is a slightly different color, but it's going to be close enough. I just want to make sure that it all goes together. Before I start throwing highlights on it. And we'll get closer in a second. Super. Hopefully, this will be the dawn of a new era for Anne's stream not being silly. Knock on. I actually have a wood floor. Knock on actual wood. So just getting a solid base coat of this brown onto the areas I want it in. Then we're going to add some shading and some highlighting. Don't lick your brush, Valandar. It's probably your first rule of usage on the horrible lead-based white paint. Which existed even, you know, beyond the makeup there. It actually, you know, there was lead in house paint for a very long time. And in a lot of other crap in our environment. Until people, I forget who it was, but it was actually Neil deGrasse Tyson covered it on the first Cosmos TV series. The proliferation of lead in our environment. And the guy who figured out that it was terrible and pretty much led a crusade against it, even when all of the industrial manufacturers were like, there's no problem at all. Well, you could use any skin tone, Valandar. Come on. Like, any skin tone could wear that makeup, except probably, like, you know, really dark skin tones. So, mostly you're just trolling, and I'm mostly ignoring you. But, I mean, white is white. It doesn't matter whether it's lead. Exactly, Trash, exactly. There is actually, I think, 1 or 2 actual real-world examples of figure enthusiasts, people who, you know, modeled or painted miniatures, getting lead poisoning. And usually, those were people who had a crap ton, pretty much their house was lead-lined, and they were terrible about cleanup, so they would get tiny bits of lead, like, as they filed things on their fingertips, and they'd be eating their, you know, breakfast or something at the same time. Oh, okay. I would have to have a sample. Like, you... Okay, so Valandar, here we go. First of all, I haven't ever seen lead white, like that old ancient lead white. I have no idea which way it shifts. But, in general, you can use any color to shade white. Like, the reason I didn't, like, take you seriously is because who even has that stuff anymore? But I don't know. I'm pretty sure that with any white, you can do any shadows. I mean, it's white. So you should, as long as there's no like weird chemical interaction, you should have like infinite possibilities with it. I don't know. Lead paint was before my time. But honestly, if you're doing white over skin, I mean, probably grayish. Like it's, or like if you're gonna do, yeah, I mean, it's like, it's white. It's, if you like, if you're talking about like geisha makeup or whatever like that, you're putting a really thick coat of solid white over the skin. You're not going to see the skin at all. So the white itself is going to have shadows depending on what's in the environment, the color of the light, and stuff like that. Oh. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've never studied it because I've never had to duplicate it. So that's everybody else has some great ideas of looking at portraiture. But yeah, that's like I honestly thought you were trolling because I'm like, who does that? But yeah, it makes sense if you're painting a historical bust, for example, that you might need to actually know how to paint that stuff. So yeah, I'd look at good oil painters and see how they handled it. But yes, I thought this was in the nature of various other questions I get that are somewhat, not really applicable. But yes, it could actually be applicable. So apologies. I did not take you seriously. Because I was like, WTF? Oh, I wouldn't. Okay, so if that's the case, if you're trying to paint miniatures because of something in like the country, okay, my first guideline then would be don't overthink it. Like glance at a couple of portraits from the time period in actual France, see if they even like have a pattern of how they did it. I'm willing to bet that almost every artist handled it differently, and just make the face really white. Like there's definitely like there's being historical. Like if you have a bust where you know that that was the style of the day and you're trying to be very true to history, that's one thing. But doing it in 28 millimeter, any subtleties are probably going to get lost. Any subtleties that a portrait artist would have the ability to do. Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking, Grey Wolf, is each artist is gonna have tackled it differently, and they're probably actually tackling it based on other factors than how it actually looked, like other colors in the environment and stuff like that. Dark Magician, I would say use, oh man, they've changed all the numbers, or all the names is the problem. In reality, any of those, like, not peachy flesh and not the really pale skin tones, but the middle skin tones and bones will be generally close enough. Like what used to be barbarian flesh, but then people had a problem with that name, and so we changed it. But I don't know what that new name is, and I don't remember the number off the top of my head. I think it was 944, I want to say 442, something like that. Bronzed flesh, is that the name up for it? Yeah, 9442, 9443. Just add white for highlights. Yeah, what I would concentrate on Valandar in that is less realism and more just trying to make them look really pale, right? Almost vampiric pale. and have like other areas of the skin be normal skin color so that you can be obvious that they're wearing a mask of makeup. So I'm adding in some of this Death Knight Black to bring in shadow colors. There's a lot of like little illustrations in the wood here. I'm using it thinned down. It's about 4:1. Up. Hold on. Yes. Okay, for some reason, I'm getting Discord calls from Justin. I'm getting crazy stuff from Justin. Justin, just type in chat. I'm following it. Either that or it was a Discord butt dial. I'm not sure which. Tell me if the stream is getting weird. Oh. Yeah, well, Discord thought you did, or my phone thought you were calling from Discord. So, it's weird. We've offended the Discord gods. I think the interweb's now out to get us because we've managed to get a decent stream out of Twitch. Oh, weird. It was calling both of us at the same time, Reaper. I mean, you'd be surprised. Sometimes it actually, sometimes poisonous things appear to help you before they, irreparably kill you. Because apparently, if you, I think it was, I forget what time it was the fashion to, like, eat little bits of arsenic, but essentially arsenic gives you really clear skin. Until it kills you, Assuming if you OD on it. Apparently you can get used to it. Just trying to get some little highlights in here, doing a little bit of wet blending just to bring these guys out. Ghost in the Machine, yeah. Oh, Swarthy Flesh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. But yeah, I mean, I made kind of... Honestly, there's only so many skin tones. And with bones, I was kind of trying to give extra, kind of in the neighborhood of tan skin, because I found it a very versatile skin tone. So I was kind of doing different shades of being close to tan skin. So until you get to stuff like Peachy Flesh, which is very orange, and the Pale Flesh, which is very pink, you're all right, and you could probably use all those in succession as a triad. 442, 443, 444. Probably you could use those as a triad. I'm just using edge highlighting with my brush to bring out these little edges on these spikes that are coming out of Mr. Worm and making him sing so nicely. Because, such a positive miniature. Such a feel-good miniature we're working on today. I have not seen a raccoon out here, but we have squirrels. They steal our figs, which is fine because I really don't like figs. They just, I'm going to be peeved when they start stealing our avocados. When our avocado tree gets big enough. But at least we should have enough avocados that even if they steal, one or two, we could still have decent avocados. "24 skin tones?" Yeah. Well, we also in Reaper have at least that, right? Because we have the bronze skin, the golden skin, the dark skin, medium, and light skins, the rosy skinned, and then all the bone skin tones. I'm pretty sure that makes at least 24. Yeah, I'm sure there are raccoons. I just haven't seen evidence of one yet. I have smelled evidence of skunk, though. And where there are skunks, there are usually raccoons. The paints in Bones should go from a dark to light progression because that's what I tend to do with all the lines I design. It's dark to light. It's my default. It's just the way I roll. Dark comes first, followed by middle, and then light. Once I started that, I continued that pattern just so that it wouldn't be confusing. Getting these little guys highlighted. There isn't a lot of room on these to actually suggest texture, so I'm just pretty much doing a couple of lines to kind of suggest a little bit. Weird, Brigala. Your friend is weird. There are even weirder creatures than skunks, so, you know. Like, skunks are kind of tame as it goes. I'm now doomed to be skunked. Hamsters are pretty weird. They shouldn't have exactly the same shade. Everything is a little bit different. If you did get exactly the same shade, I would be like, because it's kind of was my goal, never to charge you guys twice for the same color. I tried to always switch things up. Bill Robertson, the Bones paint line came purely from Ed wanting a Bones branded set of colors. So originally the concept had no difference. However, at the time we had the HD line, which was our high density, higher coverage line. And there were definite color holes in that line that I wanted to fill. So I created Bones as a supplement, kind of a partner to the HD line, and used it to fill the holes in the colors in the HD line. So HD and Bones were very, very similar. High density, slightly higher coverage. And then HD got canceled. So then it was just Bones, but then a bunch of popular HD colors came back again into Bones, so they ended up being all one line in the end anyway. That's it in a nutshell. Other differences are Bones is not in Triads, neither was HD. Triads are only in Core. Core is also the line that has the additives and primers in it, and liners and clear brights, special use paints like that are only in Core. The metallics in the Bones line are new technology. They utilize a different sort of flake that is more shiny, but still non-toxic. That is the difference. That's a question I haven't had for a while. Yep. Yeah, in general, you're going to find that Bones line reaches for higher coverage, but doesn't give you necessarily all the versatility that transparency can give you as far as creating washes and glazes. But in general, the two lines mix just fine, work just fine, airbrush just fine. It's more the strategy of them, how they're laid out, various special things that are in one and not in the other. And a basic emphasis on a little more coverage in Bones. So bringing in some of our shadows on our staff here. I'm gonna just bring in a little bit more shadow, because when you want more depth and detail and you've already highlighted up, the answer is to take your shadows darker. We talked a bit about this yesterday when we were working on the metallics on Bronze Golem. Always take your shadows, like if you want contrast, take your shadows darker. It isn't always about adding highlights. Sometimes it's deepening shadows. I'm going to take some of this brown and move it over and put more creamy ivory into it to make it lighter. I want to bring these colors up and start highlighting skulls down here as well. I also need to not forget the back sides here. So we're getting a bunch of stuff on this guy done today. Let's see. I want 1 drop of creamy ivory. We're bringing in these guys here. Boop. And drop a dot of water into that. Grab my mixing brush to mix things up so I don't screw up my regular brush. There we go. That's a nice pale color. Might need 1 more drop of water, but we'll test it. So we'll test that and see. I probably wanted a little more opaque for working on the staff here anyway. And I bring him way up here. I have a really full day today. What do you guys got? Anything good going on? I'm going to essentially pay myself for going downtown to dish crap out of the old apartment by getting myself a poke bowl for lunch. Because bribery, it works. Motivate me to go downtown. So just a really fine brush here with just a little bit of lighter color in the center generally of each area. Also, tonight David is cooking, which makes me happy because that means I don't have to. Ooh, I made fish tacos last night with my air fryer. And although I definitely, like, there's a learning curve to getting good results in the air fryer, they tasted like fish tacos and the fish was perfectly cooked. I just didn't spritz them with enough oil. Like, I thought maybe I could spritz them halfway through and not spritz them at the beginning, and I was incorrect. But they still turned out really crispy and tasty with the breading. Oh, made fresh biscuits. Yum. Fresh biscuits help anyway. Ah, Cloud Giant. And that's nice. There we go. Just trying to give a little bit of kind of corded texture to this, so I'm highlighting the little bumps. Nice. Oh, nice. Relearning knitting. That's cool. That's very useful. Just going to put a little bit of my darkest color to emphasize. And I'm not putting the dark color all the way through these areas. I'm mostly starting it from this shadow here and carrying it out. And I'm not making it go all the way through to the other side. I do want a little more shadow down here. So I'm going to do that down there. Just bring it in. The undersides of stuff like this don't need a lot of attention, just a bit to bring out small details. Just a little bit of shadow down there to make the staff stand out a little bit better. More in Val. Alrighty, and remember when you're highlighting things on the underside, you never want the highlight to go as high as it goes on the top. So we'll talk about that a bit more. I'm working on my $5 Patreon thing for you guys now, for those of you who are my patrons on here. And it's going to be a Pentads one, and I did a video on highlighting with pentads instead of triads, highlighting and shading, a little while ago for my Patreon, which is patreon.com/paintingbig. And it was a very popular idea. And I always kind of felt that Master Series would have worked just a little better with pentads maybe, but it would have just made the line monstrously huge from the start. And I'm kind of glad we didn't do it, but now I can actually put out material to give you guys some 5-color series to work with. And how pale you take the wood here and how grayed out you make it is how old the wood is generally going to look, by the way. As you know, those of you with wooden fences know, when you have a very old fence, it goes very, very pale indeed. And gray. Here, not as gray yet. There we go. That's nice detailing. I like that. But yeah, so we're going to start with reds. I'm going to do a couple of different red pentads for you guys. And a big thank you to those who are my patrons for supporting me, of course. Thank you for the link, Quindy. We've missed you, Quindy. Like, Trash had to do all the links. And like, you're, like, super smooth at it. So, like, although Trash's help is absolutely appreciated, we are happy to have our Quindy back. There we go, just highlighting a little bit more on the edges of these. You can see that I am using a warmer white than I used up here, so if I want to bring this back in line with each other, I'll actually take this creamy ivory and I'll come over and work with it here on these horns to warm them up just a little bit so that we get more of a match with over here. No, he just doesn't like, you know, like he's not on it like you are. Like he doesn't have them all memorized necessarily, or he's not as fast off the bat because he doesn't have to do it every day. He was good though. He was a good stand-in. He was a good substitute Quindy as far as it goes. There we go. So now those horns are more in line with these. So this is if you lose your colors or you're not sure what color you used for a thing and you manage to get close. this is one way you can totally bring things back in a line. I didn't repaint this whole area. I just repainted the horns because when I looked at these, I could see a color difference between just the tips of the horns and the tips of these spikes. But now having just quickly repainted just the tips and highlights, now everything looks like it's the right color, even though I'm using a totally different brown over here than I did up there. So just a lesson to don't overthink it. You just need to get close. And if you see that your old paint job is just a little bit different, like in the highlight or in the shadow, just change that one thing. You don't have to repaint the whole area. He was a trash substitute for you. Quindy with the takedown here. She's back with a vengeance. A little bit of highlight there. I'm going to do a little bit of highlight down on the bottom there. Then let's go and do some skulls. So a long time ago, I was reading an article in, I think it was White Dwarf magazine, Games Workshop. There was one of the sculptors was interviewed and asked how he got his start with Games Workshop. And he mentioned that the first thing that GW asked their new sculptors to sculpt at that time were skulls. Explains why they have so many skulls all over the surfaces of all of their things. But here, we have some skulls. And we can paint them. And we should paint them. And often you could go with the same set of colors as you went for on things like parchment or really, really washed out wood. Bone will generally be a little yellower, but as I've just shifted my wooden parts yellower, I can get away with this. I also could switch to a slightly warmer color, but keeping things roughly in this family, you've got this creamy color here, you've got a creamy color up here, you've got a creamy color now up here and on the staff, and then you also will have it now down in this corner. So if you look, that's a light color. It's the lightest color, and it's repeated around the figure, which makes your eye travel nicely around the figure. It's a trouble. So I'm going to start actually with my creamy ivory, just kind of blocking in the top of these skulls. This one seems to have crap growing on it. It's very rough. Probably it's just the end of a mold line or vent, but we will just approximate and move on. I removed it as best I could. There's still a little bit of texture there. Oh, and this little skull is just peeking out, so we don't want to try to highlight all of it. We just want to highlight kind of the area that's peeking out. Yay. So yeah, you keep a lot of the skull in shadow because it is under this shadow. So wherever you see a shadow, you don't want to drop one in your highlight. You want to pull back on that. Just leave it the slightly darker brown. Oh, yawn. That's what comes of me getting up early. I need my nap this afternoon. Power naps for the win. Alrighty. And we definitely, if you can, put the highlight on the bridge where the nose would come out. On the brow ridge for sure. Bottom of the eye socket where the light would catch. Definitely a little bit on the teeth. Try to pick out each tooth if you can. It will help reinforce the idea of the skull. Hey, the sun came out. My dad used to talk about this when he lived here when I was right around the time I was born, since this is where I was born. He was like, yeah, I'd carry an umbrella to work with me every morning because it would look like it was going to rain, and then it'd be sunny by, like, 10 a.m. There we go. You don't want to, like, be crazy, like, make your skulls stand out like huge glowing beacons, but you just want to be probably Brigala. And I might come up to a shinier white out here on these guys. It depends, though. Like, if you want the skulls to look older, you need to keep them more yellowy or gray. Fresh skulls are very yellow and white, like fresh bone. So we'd have to ask ourselves how fresh these skulls are. How long have they been hanging out? And of course, if you do take them up to pure white, you're going to run into a problem where they become distracting. So if you do go up closer to white, you definitely want to keep that understated, and you probably want to balance it with highlighting close to pure white up on, say, these spikes and these horns, because you don't want everybody's attention going down here. There's enough detail down here, So what we really want is the eye moving nicely around the piece, because there's a lot of nice details on this piece. So yeah, I would base whether I go up higher on the other skulls that aren't kind of buried, on how distracting it would be, and on, the idea of, am I trying to suggest that whether these are fresh or have they been around a while? And kind of try to find a compromise that will work without being too distracting. It also depends on if the bones in a given piece are actually a part of, say, a diorama where you want to draw attention to them. If the bones on the base are important to the story, then you might want to emphasize them just a little bit more. Oh yeah, we tried to fix the stream today, Space Toy. We actually, I had a phone call with our tech guy, Justin, this morning, and we changed a few things. Then we actually brought down the stream a little bit ago and brought it back up to fix another thing. So hopefully the stream will not crash for the remainder of today and for the foreseeable future, as long as we keep vigilant. But yeah, painting big on Instagram. So if you saw a big Soldier 76 statue and a Logan Grimnar from Space Wolves, and the last thing I posted, I think, was my Noli. So if you saw Noli, then that would be me. There we go, getting that up. Yeah. There we go. Ooh, Quindy's got it. Oh, and this is Quindy, Space Toy. She's our mod who has been buried under the hurricane and has now reemerged with full internet and power and awesome links in the chat. So, yes, I somewhat have been neglecting my Insta, as I mentioned before. It's like, when you've got so much to do every month, there are always sacrifices. And a lot of artists and creators, sadly, will sacrifice their socials because it's not like, it's taking a lot of time and it's not directly producing. Now, Insta is kind of nice in that it doesn't take a ton of time. It still does take time for me to figure out which tags to put in. I have a list of them. It makes it a little faster, but still takes a bit of time. Mostly I just need to set aside 10 minutes to post an Insta photo every week, which I certainly should be able to do. Stuff like Facebook can be a real time sucker, though. Ooh, internet power and air conditioning. Ooh. More than I have, Quindy. More than I have. But you know what? We made it through because I'm okay with heat tolerance. I just can't handle the cold. Like, David wants to leave the window in the bedroom open all night, and immediately I put 2 extra blankets on the bed on my side. That's how wimpy I am. Oh, bust plinths. Yeah. Oh, you just do Insta. Yeah, I don't do Facebook for painting big. I thought about it, but I'm like, you know what? Most of the mini painting community is more on Instagram anyway. And like I said, much faster. Generally seems to be a more efficient usage of my ability and time. All right, so we get up to our eye sockets, the lower part, the cheekbone. Remember to keep your highlight round on the top of skulls if you have the whole skull surface like this. So when you add another highlight, it should be round in shape. Kind of start it just in the middle, like a little oval, and kind of work it out. But keep it the same shape as the skull as you expand it. Do not make it a box. Do not make it a line. Do not make it a weird oval with a flat side. Keep it round. If you keep it round, then you can see how it brings out the shape of the bone. And this is true for every surface you paint. If you make your highlights and shadows echo the shape of that surface, that's how you create the illusion of volume. Maybe even more volume than there is. Your cat does not appreciate the cold, huh? Yeah, I'm sure Twitter is still a place to do too. I usually have my Insta echo to Twitter. Because I just don't have the time for Twitter. David's a big Twitter person, but he follows a lot of people on Twitter. But I'm just so busy. Like, social media is like, if I have time on the weekend, I'll look at it. Otherwise, I'm usually creating. Working on things that I need to get done. So I'm going to accentuate the eye sockets here and accentuate the teeth a little bit. Just because the skull is tilted backward, but those parts are sticking out. Speaking of skulls and spooky things, are y'all looking forward to Halloween? Like, I totally am. Like, we have a house in a neighborhood with kids, so I can actually sit out with candy. I can, like, get a costume. I can be that crazy neighbor lady. Yeah, Putty and Paint is an awesome site for miniatures painters and sculptors. You should go look into that if you want to see the latest stuff that, especially the European side of the hobby is producing. It is really a great site. And yeah, I need to set up a Putty and Paint as well. Now that I'm kind of getting back into doing some higher quality work, I feel like I want to represent over there a bit more. All right, so got that rounded skull set up, got the eyes there. Yeah, same here, but this year it's on. Because it's at least here, it's, it's an outdoor holiday, so. We have a really cool entryway for our house, in that our front door is not on the front of the house. The front of the house is actually the garage and then actually the front wall of our master bed suite. So you have to go through a side gate. And then there's this narrow corridor with the house on one side and like kind of these bush things on the other side. And it's pretty dark and shady and cool. And I could totally string lights over that. Like, it would be cool to turn it into a little Halloween alcove. David is not as into Halloween as I am. He is not as excited. He is mostly like, make sure you save some candy bars so that we can eat them after. I did carve pumpkins last year because we could put them out in our apartment complex next to our door. So we did. David did a snarly pumpkin, and I did a wolf howling. They were pretty cool. He wasn't going to carve pumpkins with me, and then I got him to, and he did have fun. So I could probably get him to carve pumpkins with me again. Maybe this year I'll do a dragon. Or a cat. I like to do animals. I need to get some purple and orange Halloween lights, though. We actually have hooks all along our roof to easily string holiday lights from, which I love. All I need is a ladder and some gumption. But yeah, super excited. All right, so we're getting that little skull there, and I'm trying to mostly keep my highlights up top here because his lower face is kind of turned away from the light, and it's kind of buried too in tentacles. So I want to pick out enough little bits to get the shape of the face, but I can't hit the teeth or anything like that. So I'm mostly gonna just bring up this skull area so that you get that roundness of it, and we were gonna rely on the faces of these other guys, especially this little guy who's like way out in the light. If you want to make something look shiny, you want to put a spot highlight. But this is, since I've been working with this creamy ivory, I don't really have the contrast, so I would have to grab some pure white or a lighter off-white to suggest that. So I think I will. I'll grab, I'll try to see if I can get it to work with bleached linen. I have pure white, but I really don't want to pop it that high. Yeah. I think Halloween has taken off more in other places now. So I'm not going to thin this very much. I want to thin it a little bit, though. The harshness of the highlight that you put on is going to control how shiny the surface looks. So if you put a little dot, which is obviously a dot, that is going to suggest a very shiny surface, assuming you place it correctly. So here, probably there. Oh, it's not round though. I've got to make it round. And then I'm going to go, that's not quite right, so I'm going to correct it because it's too far over. Sometimes you have to play with it to figure out, like, you kind of want it, in this case, in the center of the previous highlight. Boop. Give me a blob. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work because everything is too diffused. But I can kind of fudge it in. The problem is that I made the other highlights too diffused, so it's the rest of the skull is saying no, this is more of a worn surface. It's not a shiny surface. So I'm just gonna have to blend that in. So you kind of think of that too when you're doing this. If you want a shiny surface, you actually have to tackle different parts of it differently. You can't just decide. You can't highlight it like it's kind of a soft satin finish and then give it that pop at the end and expect it to look right, as I have just demonstrated. But I really wanted my kind of softer highlight there, so that's where I went. Yeah, looking forward to Halloween. We have to get our last trip out of the way, and then I can... There we go. Get that a little bit more. And the sky is pretty good. Yeah. Brought these guys up a little more than I thought I was going to, but that's all right. The real test is when I look at them, do they distract? And they really don't. They're just kind of there. It helps that the tentacles are all kind of there, jumbled around. So it's kind of disguising the skulls, so they're not being too totally distracting. Okay, we got that. Let's do the back side. We just have a little bit of staff here in the back of the antlers to do. Let's see here. So there's a little bit of texture suggested, just like on the front. On the back, it's not quite filling quite right. So I'm going to reference the front a lot as I go back here to see. And I'm going to try to work on the side where I can see more details. Because I can see some dashes and some dots. So I do want to pay attention where those are. Yeah, the skulls do look brighter, a little bit brighter in on screen than in person, but it's all right for me so far. We'll see. I still want the attention to go up here, so. You're kidding? You'll have a new baby. You won't be getting any sleep. So during all that time that you're not getting sleep, Agent Marvel, you can carve pumpkins, right? I remember being sleep deprived when I had puppies, when Kiri had puppies. There was a point where I was so sleep deprived that I just went into super industrious mode. It was really weird. I forget. It was like a week of sleep deprivation. And my whole like self just went into overpower, and I started doing a whole bunch of like the decoration and cleaning tasks that I had never had time or oomph for before. Because my body was just like in despair. It was like, I have no sleep and I cannot sleep, and I am just going to rearrange the entire buffet now. It was crazy. At the time, I was like, what the heck is happening? Because having a litter of baby puppies and having a new baby human are both very good sleep deprivation triggers. Or some of my friends have told me. All right, so I've got some texture. I've suggested a little extra texture that isn't actually sculpted, but is in line with the texture that's on here, just in case it just didn't fill very well. I'm going to bring up the back of the tentacles a bit. Or tentacles, haha, horns. Well, getting a puppy is different, Bill. I'm talking about like your dog having puppies, where you have, 6 infant babies that, you have to actually like keep an eye on for their first week to make sure that they do okay. So babies, like fresh out of the mom babies. Getting a puppy, it just means you're usually getting up in the middle of the night to let the puppy out, and that's not bad. With the baby dogs, with the fresh little babies, day 0 to day 2 can be pretty hairy. Especially if there are a couple that are weaker. So newborns are a whole different story. So yeah, I didn't sleep too much. I slept pretty much on the couch right next to the whelping box, and I hardly slept at all because I was always waking up to check on them. If I heard anybody cry out, I was up. And they squeak a lot. So yeah, quite a bit of sleep deprivation for me. I mean, worth it. They're adorable and they've made great dogs, but grew up to be fantastic dogs. But yeah, it was definitely a lot of work to do it right. Alrighty, I'm going to bring this in a little, blend it in a little bit. That was a little harsh right there. I want kind of a gradient. Yeah, the baby costumes are kind of funny. Some of them are really clever. Personally, I always love the baby Godzillas. Hey, Sky's Clear. Thanks for the resub. 27 months. That's crazy talk. Thank you. You're obviously one of our like premier supporters. Fantastic. Oh, level 1 generic humanoid. Yes, that's also good. Let's get these little textures in here. Like I said, some of these are sculpted on, and some of these are just me kind of duplicating what's on the other side because the sculpt didn't quite come through. There's an art show this weekend out here that I think David and I are going to go to. It's always fun. You get so many ideas for like colors and sometimes like textures or different colors for shading. I like going to art shows. Hmm, 1040. I think I'm going to get up and actually stretch a bit. First, I'm going to get the shadow in here, though. Just adding in a little bit of this blue, the Death Knight Black, which is more of a blue-purple. Getting in, essentially it's going to create more contrast. It's going to be a little bit too bold here where I'm putting it on, but I'm going to bring it down just a little bit and shade darker toward the top of the head to make it more like it is on the front. Once again, getting more contrast in this case is a matter of adding darker shadows. There. I'm glad to see that these babies will be brought up as nerds. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for continuing the nerd legacy into new generations. You are the future of our nerdly race. Raise them well and teach them to play D&D. And to be good members of society. There we go. All right, I'm going to actually get up and do my stretches now that I've got that kind of blocked in. Yeah, we're making a lot of... I'm trying to knock out a lot of things that just have been pending for a while. And next stream on this model, we'll probably finish the lettering on the book, and we'll also work on more of the tentacles here, add some more purple tentacles back here, and get some stuff... more stuff highlighted. Like we did these wonderful highlighted tentacles and kind of mapped these out last time. So you may have been a closet nerd for a while. I don't know. I mean, technically, like my dad never developed into a nerd, but when he was a teenager, he loved reading science fiction. And even into, his adulthood, he continues to read science fiction and fantasy. So he just never went the full distance. Because he has this thing called dignity, which is way overrated. Which I'm thankful that I realized that. If you have been sitting for a long time, please feel free to get up and stretch, guys. If you feel like it. Oh, that feels good. There we go. Oh boy, I really needed the stretch. Oh, very good. I was a nerd from a very young age, and I've just embraced it completely. So I am just a couple years older than you, Space Toy, so... But I started playing D&D at age 9, and painted my first figure at age 9. And pretty much never looked back from there. All right, I'm going to go and do a floor exercise, floor stretch real quick, and then I'll come back and we'll finish doing this, the wood stuff and the bone stuff. Alrighty. Oh, I wanted to show you guys something. Hold on. Let me get something quick from the other room. So I think I told you guys at some point that I was getting my old engagement ring from my previous marriage redesigned into a pendant. And I think I showed you what it was, kind of the beginning design. Beginning design kind of looked like that. And then she's like, okay, that's cool, but do me one that's much bigger with a lot more detail. So I did that, and I actually inked it. And if you look up at my face camera, that's what it finally ended up being. So I finished inking it, and I'm going to drop it off at the jeweler. And she's going to do it in 3D sculpting, digital. Which is pretty awesome. I get to drop it off today. So I'm excited. It's the first piece of jewelry I have ever designed. It'll only be about as long as this, maybe not even as long as this miniature when it's done. It'll only be that tall. So it'll be shrunk down quite a bit. But I'm excited because, like, this is cool. Designing a piece of jewelry is cool, and it won't even be that expensive because I'm gonna use the metal from the ring and the gems from the ring. So yeah, I'm pretty happy. It could get addictive though. Like, I can see why people become jewelry students, because designing your own stuff could really, really get cool. Like, being able to just create jewelry that has meaning for you, especially now with what you can do with 3D sculpting, which is, you know, some of our sculptors at Reaper do jewelry making as well, or have created jewelry. Jason Weeby for a long time, and then Andy Pieper as well. And I mean, you can sculpt it in ZBrush now, and apparently there's a 3D printing resin that works like wax, so that you can use, like, create a prototype in it, and then it burns out in the mold, and it's pretty darn cool, actually. I think this stuff is fantastic. So I got to use, I'm happy that I got to flex my 2D muscles a bit, because, well, other than doing, like, freehand on miniatures, I don't draw very much anymore. Usually, I find that if I have a block like that gray, I gotta break it down into shapes. That's why my initial concept was so simple, right? I knew I wanted the wings, and I knew I wanted the hourglass with the gem in the middle. But beyond that, I was just kind of stumped. So I had to draw it small, and that also let me see, like, kind of exactly how much she could do. Like, when she saw the simplicity of it, she's like, oh, you could go much more elaborate than this. And she gave me some examples. So then I was able to go back and make a much more elaborate design, which I don't think I could have just drawn out the gate. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Soldier 76 is one of my favorite characters from Overwatch, and I love Overwatch Space Toys. So, yeah, that was a lot of hours. It was about 140, I think, to do all that texture on him. I want to do Tracer, too. I've got, well, as you can see her, I've got my Tracer statue up behind me along with Widowmaker. But I'd like to repaint Tracer because she has a lot of cool textures potentially on her, because the jacket is actually like a suede leather. And I could do some more weathering on her pistols and stuff. Cool, yeah. Me and David play as well. And I'm addicted to watching Overwatch League. So I watch the pros do it because they're so much better at it than I am. And we root for our teams. Looking forward to Overwatch 2. But yeah, Soldier was just kind of a labor of love. He was what broke the painter's block. He broke my burnout, which seems ironic when you figure, that I spent 140 hours with the model. but I liked the model enough to put that amount of time into it. And so the kind of the stall I had been in up to that point, like I was able to beat it. But yeah, he's way cool. He's in our display case in our front room. We have the very nice models in 2 display cases in our front room. And I feel like we need even more. We need even more display cases. Yeah, I don't play competitive anymore. I used to, but I like to watch it. I like to watch the professional players do it. Because they're so good. And sometimes I do pick up tips watching those games where it makes me a little bit better at my quick play games. I'm a support player. David does tank or DPS. There we go. So a little bit more, again, heightening the detailing by adding additional shadows and highlighting back here on the staff. I don't know. Now that I know this jeweler and I know how much she charges, I don't know that I'm interested in getting into the 3D aspect of it, Carrie. But like drawing, like I told, because David every once in a while he'll buy me a piece of jewelry, and I told him that the danger here is that now that I know how much she charges, is like for Christmas it's going to be, hey honey, would you like a necklace? And I'll be like, I would like, a few $100 to go and draw, design, and get my own made. Oh, I'm very average, if not below average space toy. Like I'm silver at best. Like, but I still enjoy the game, and that's the important part, right? Yeah, exactly. Well, it's to differentiate it from other techniques, I think, Brigala, but you're right. It's to differentiate it from following the underlying pattern. Instead, you go off and do your own thing, right? There we are. And we'll keep that a little bit lighter down here because it's really in shadow there. But yeah, I've played with various clays. It's okay. The thing is, when you get like quite good with a pencil and a pen, or even a brush in this case, you know how much it will take you to learn to be very good enough for your own standards in another medium. And you have to really weigh that. So like if I wanted to get really good at metal clay, I know how much it would take me to do that. And it would take away from all the other art forms that I do. So there comes a point where I feel like you have to be a little bit careful, because otherwise you're just going to keep jumping from one hobby to another. And for me, the reward is in attaining mastery. Like, I want to be very good at something that I'm going to spend hundreds of hours doing, or thousands. So I am less likely to start an entirely new pursuit, but rather to try to repurpose things that I've already become good at. Because I really find that I don't get bored with the stuff that I do now, right? Like, I always can find something to get excited about with painting or drawing or writing, which I'm still trying to get better at. There we go. Now we got some nice textures and light coming on here. Liking it. We just need to get this part done. Yeah, hobby creep is a thing. Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. I will agree. I mean, come on, I took up painting after I was doing, like, my chosen art form prior to becoming a good miniature painter was colored pencil. So that's quite I liked pen and ink, and I liked colored pencil. Those were the things that I spent the most time doing. So this was quite a different step because the paint that I had previously enjoyed using was actually watercolors or oils. I always hated acrylics. But then I went out and became kind of a master of acrylics. So go figure. That's the great irony of my existence. So yeah, and I always, like, I tend to bring up things, especially when talking about creativity. I think you can say, just like you say, there's a lot of crossover between creative disciplines. But I do think that it takes a little bit extra to cross from a 2D to a 3D, for example. Because I keep thinking about picking up ZBrush. I was talking to Jason Wiebe about it after ReaperCon, and he's like, you should just pick up Sculptress or Baby ZBrush and just play with it. Like, just play with it a little bit every week. And you'll ease into it that way, and you won't have to have a huge time commitment. You won't make as heavy progress on it, but at least you'll be doing it. And I'm like, I'm always tempted, but it always comes back to, do I really need another thing right now? Do I really need it? The answer is no. Oils are fun. I kind of miss oils. I did a lot of oils in college. Really enjoyed the vibrancy of color and the blendability. Watercolors, I actually like. I really enjoy wildlife art done in watercolors. Yeah, do I really need it? No. Yeah, Blender. Yep. Yeah, for sure. 3D Designer. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, Mike. Aaron Lovejoy just learned Blender, and I talked to Jason about that, about the pros and cons. Given my weird foibles, like, okay, here's the dealio with me. I start with a given program, and then I'm very, very, very reluctant to move over to a different program, even one that acts similarly. Like, I get into a program. Like, when I was using the free version, I was using GIMP, and then I had to move to actual Photoshop, and now I've had to move to a different, platform, and I hate that. I hate it. So it probably makes more sense for me to start with, if I want ZBrush eventually, I should start with a version of ZBrush so that I can start learning the interface right away and not have to reteach myself commands or the way that you do things. So that's a matter of kind of knowing myself, like knowing my little quirks. Because with my luck, I'd pick up Blender, and I'd love it, and then I'd want to like go whole hog, and I'd want to do ZBrush, but then the interface would stop me cold. The interface change would stop me cold. Just because that's something that I have yet to work out in my psyche. So yeah, we'll see. I've been thinking about this for years, and I've yet to pick up 3D sculpting, so we'll see. And yeah, do beware, though, if you are trying to get really better at a hobby that you do, beware of cheating on your main hobby just because you're starting to feel the pressure to perform. Like, I'm finally starting to get, like, really good as a writer, I feel, and so, it's the human brain's tendency to go, oh, well, let's get a new shiny then. And really, I should be doubling down on my writing. Yeah. Right. Illustrator, yeah, Illustrator's like just a whole weird beast all its own, I think. Yeah, I can imagine that would be really rough, Chibi. There we go. And now we just got to do these little pokey things. Does his own minis in Blender. Well, Lovejoy, for those of you at ReaperCon, or who didn't, if you haven't gotten to look at Aaron Lovejoy's Voldemort diorama from ReaperCon, go to Facebook and look him up. It is, he taught himself Blender in order to create the environment. Like this, there's a flight of stairs, and like there's bookshelves and furniture, and he essentially did all of it in Blender. He learned Blender so he could do all of that himself and print it out for the diorama. So it's very, very cool. Right, exactly, Red Links. That's kind of what Jason explained. I talked to the sculptors. I mean, I have the happy of having been a Reaper employee and an artist. I'm friends with a lot of our sculptors, and so if I do need help, I feel like Bob and Julie have helped me a lot with green sculpting. and like for doing like conversions that I want to do and stuff. And, Jason helped me a lot just talking about, the 3D thing at ReaperCon. So I feel like if I want to go in, I have excellent mentors to give me advice about it. That's the good thing. And in reality, that's one of the great things about ReaperCon, right? Is you have access to the sculptors. And honestly, if the sculptors hear that you are trying to be a sculptor, they will go out of their way to help you. Like, we all want to get more people into our thing. And, some people dive more into the teaching aspect than others, but even so, like, I know Andy Pieper and Jason and Bobby, and I've seen Bobby and Jean and Bob and Julie, all of our sculptors, all of the sculptors at ReaperCon that I've seen will absolutely help you if you're trying to do what they do. They are fantastic, generous people. And they love to see other people getting excited about the thing that they are excited about, which is as it should be. Yes, ReaperCon is in Texas. See, there you go, Space Toy. You could make it. You could visit family and just happen to go to a con next year. Yeah, depending on where you are in Dallas. If your family's out in El Paso, you're going to be way far away from where ReaperCon is, because Dallas is like 8 hours long if you drive one end to the other. Just bringing in a little bit of this highlight. I think we're looking pretty good. Oh, there you go. You're perfectly positioned then to come up to ReaperCon. Great excuse. Yeah, ReaperCon is great because a lot of us artists, like, we all have chairs, assigned seating, and an artist row. And so you can just walk around and talk to the artists, be it sculptors or painters. And if you're working on stuff, like if you are working on Blender stuff that you would love to kind of show them just for feedback or just to show it off, I'm sure they would love to see it. Like, just bring screenshots or whatever. They love to see stuff. Most of them use ZBrush rather than Blender. Boop. There we are. We have highlights. We have Dude. Look, Dude is almost done. Like, the front of Dude is pretty much done. Except I need a little more highlights on, worm teeth. We forgot our worm teeth. Worm teeth. And since they're tiny, I can use almost a pure white. Tiny little worm teeth. Tiny worm teeth. There we go. Almost forgot. Worm almost didn't get teeth. He would have been so sad. Gummy worm. There we go. Worm has teeth. There we are. So, all right, guys, what we did today. We worked on the wood and bone of our model to try to get all of our little details. We tighten up. You can see how much more the staff stands out now that it's got its texture on it. We kind of shifted some of the colors up here to match since we had to mix a new wood color. We touched on our skulls down there to make them pop out. And then we tackled the back just to kind of bring in some of this detail as well. ReaperCon is always going to be at the Denton Convention Center because we campaigned, Julia, when the Denton Convention Center was fighting to be built. We actually went to City Hall meetings to argue for them, and we were a part of why the project was approved. And so we love working with them. They always work well with us, and they will always be in the Denton Convention Center. And it will always be, as far as I know, over Labor Day weekend because we commit to dates, years in advance, in order to make sure that we can get the date we want. So, Labor Day weekend, in the Denton Convention Center unless some weird catastrophe happens or the world blows up, you know. As far as I know. Always with the caveat that I am not at headquarters anymore. I am not in the Monday morning meeting. I do not know all the crazy. So it is possible that some weird thing might happen, but I think Adrian's always on it and we always have our contracts signed well in advance. So, but yeah, so dude, hey, Crimson Herald is almost done. He is a model that I have not yet chosen a replacement for. So I'll have to think about that. We are winding up a great number of models all at once. Mushroom Queen, Lizette, we just finished Wyvern, so we're going to start Ogre. We're starting our Ogre tomorrow. I need to prime him today. And then we're pretty much the only models that we're kind of, I guess Mushroom Queen has a bit left on her, and Bronze Golem has a bit left on him, but everybody else is like getting close to done all at the same time, which is really weird. I don't intentionally do this, but we do have tentacles left on this guy. At least I think a couple more shows worth of tentacles. He kind of fills up his base, so there isn't a lot of basing to do on him unless we want to add things around him. But I think this one really, like Juliana, he sets off himself. I don't feel the need to do any extra basing on him. So yeah, we also have a discounted block of rooms that goes up, Julia. They tend to sell out pretty quick, though. So, and then there are other hotels nearby that we also have deals with. And this year, you got different bonus figures depending on which hotel you stayed at. So yeah. So that's what we did today, and that's what we're going to do tomorrow, and I hope you guys all will have a fantastic day. As I said, I'm running around and finishing up a chunk of moving today, and also busting butt on a bunch of Patreon stuff, because I'm trying so hard to catch up, and to get a little bit, like, a pace. Yes, and 2 p.m. Central, it's Miniatures Den with Luca, the Alpaca Nation. Everybody have a fantastic day, and tomorrow for a brand new model, Ogre Skin Tones, all right? I'll see you tomorrow morning.